മോൻസി മാത്യു. ശാസ്ത്രപ്രചാരകനും സ്വതന്ത്ര ചിന്തകനും സംഘാടകനുമായ മോൻസി മാത്യു എസൻസ് ഗ്ലോബൽ UK പ്രസിഡന്റ് കൂടിയാണ്. ആധുനിക ക്യാപിറ്റലിസം, പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ, പരിഹാരങ്ങൾ, സാധ്യതകൾ എന്ന വിഷയവുമായി ലിറ്റ്മസ് 2019 വേദിയിൽ നമുക്ക് മുന്നിലെത്തുന്നു മോൻസി മാത്യു.
Let us acknowledge one thing today. The cause of all the unrest across the world, including those world wars, which left lasting devastation across humanity and geographies, including the inhuman poverty, can all be attributed to one group of people, selfish people. These are people from national, international, from the feudal barons of Europe and Great Britain in the Middle Age, the business group of the Victorian times, and a small group of capitalists who has been leeching the resources of world for centuries after centuries. And this is the reason once Nelson Mandela said, poverty isn't a creation of nature, it is the creation of human being. Hence the solution lies with human being. Since the 2009 financial crisis erupted, I'm pretty sure your memory is as good as my memory. There has been ample opportunity to put on trial the presumed culprit or the responsible for the upheavals of recent times. The bankers for taking excessive risk, the rating agencies not regulating or not calculating the upcoming risk, the economists not predicting the oncoming onslaught of economic disaster, and the journalists who made a drama out of the entire situation. The famous Alan Greenspan, the early 2000 US Central Fed chairman, once said, the crisis will happen again, but will be different. The crises are all different, but they have one fundamental source. That is the unquenchable capability of human being when confronted with long periods of prosperity and presume that things will continue prosper and prosper again. Let us think again about the economy. Let us think about our transport system. You are driving a car, it is human nature. You will drive faster than over the limit. So what do? We bring rules. We bring speed limit. We bring better brake systems. And we bring punishment, regulation. And that's what exactly we're missing in 2009 financial crisis. The infamous Chuck Prince, then CEO and chairman of Citibank, which was at the time, back in 2009, second or third largest bank in the world, he said this, the music is on and we will continue dancing. And that was ironic. This is weeks just before the financial crisis. The banks are going to go down, the people are going to queue on the streets for their money. And this man, the CEO of the third or second largest bank in the world, is continues saying, let us dance because the music is still going on. In contrary to that, George Soros, he's a Hungarian, Eastern European investment banker who actually bet against the capital financial system. He is the man who betted against the Britons, the infamous sterling back in 1800, and he made billions of pounds, and majority of that money went to philanthropy, over 32 billion US dollar, and his net worth today is only 8 billion. Please note, 32 gone to the charity, he kept 8. And that's the kind of attitude the bankers, the resource generators, the executives, the regulators, the politicians all been maintaining. And here he comes, the famous British economist, Professor Paul Collier, who is based in Oxford University. What he says is, we had issues in 2009. The capitalism failed back in 1930s, 1800. So this is going to occur again and again. And in broader sense, capitalism as a decentralized liberal monetary policy system, we cannot leave it on its own. We can't leave the capitalism into kind of an autopilot system. We need regulation. We need checks. Look at the World Poverty Index, particularly in China. Because if you think back in 1981, the world poverty, especially in China, were around 85%. This is 1981. Come 2016, the world poverty is now 0.7%. And I think today, China's poverty rate is only 0.3%. Just the drastic move and the amount of capital being invested in China, China being known as a Marxist communist country, but this is the country who successfully implemented capitalism, the managed capitalism, because there were checks and breaks. What we understand from this is capitalism can function. Capitalism can create prosperity. Capitalism can bring millions of people out of poverty. But we need checks. We need visionaries, good politicians, good economists, and good central bank. The famous Albert Einstein once said, private capital, which is focused in few hands, is or can be a danger. Because it's their decision where the money goes. They decide where the money needs to be invested. They decide whether they want to make profit, whether they want to help the community, whether they want to bring the children out of poverty, whether they want to invest in education. And this is a problem a country like us are facing. Capitalism can influence things, not just locally, nationally, and globally. Look at this chart. Right at the top, China's low carbon or low emission car sales. When you compare with the Chinese population, it's not really significant. But look at Norway. Norway is just probably the size of 2 states of India, and then 85% of their GDP come from oil and gas. Look at them. They are investing in the future. They are investing in electric cars, hybrid cars. They are bringing down their carbon footprint because they know that they are producing the gas and the oil, and they feed the rest of the world with that money. And they are bringing that money back into their country. They are reinvesting and making their carbon footprint as neutral. Where is India? The second largest population in India. You can't see them in the chart because there is a reason. Here we go. ശബരിമലയും ശാന്തിവനവും നമ്മൾ ഏറ്റുപാടിയപ്പോൾ സംഭവിച്ച ഒരു കാര്യത്തിനെക്കുറിച്ച് എൻ്റെ അറിവിൽ എക്കണോമിക് ടൈംസ് ഒഴിച്ച് വേറൊരു ന്യൂസ് പേപ്പറും റിപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ലെന്നുള്ളതാണ്. 10% of Reliance Petroleum is taken over by Aramco, which is owned by Saudi, an autocratic nation. Their history, their records are pretty bad, particularly these days. Why? Because Saudis know that their market is losing. The Europe is currently producing around 40 to 50% of their energy from green source. Europe used to be their biggest market. China is investing heavily in the non-hydrocarbon market. Their green energy is going up and up every year. So they know that they lost European market. They're going to lose Chinese market. The Russians, the Americans, they are actually exporting oil. They don't want Saudi's oil. Where is going to be then Saudi's oil? India. No checks, no regulatory questions, no competition, no security aspect. But few people actually noticed. This 10% will become in next 5 years 50%. And what's going to happen is Reliance and Aramco or the Saudis will decide what would be our green policy nationally. You take 100 cars in the street, just make not even a single car low carbon. There's no hybrid cars, there's no electric cars, because there's no policy. Politician doesn't want to do it because the corporates controls it. What happens with all the money? Look at the top brands in the screen. You won't see the BP, British Petroleum. You won't see Imperial Chemicals. You won't see the Union Carbide. Those days, they killed thousands of people. What happened to their money? Their money came to these companies. So what is happening is these companies are creating a utilitarian system. Utilitarianism means consume, consume, consume. You buy things, you consume it, you throw away. You buy things, you consume it, throw away. And the GDP is based on consumption, not quality of life, no quality of education, no quality of the happiness. It is based on the consumption. You consume and consume and consume, and people think the economy will carry on and carry on and carry on. And this is the problem, because when people stop consuming, when the car sales goes down, your finance minister worries, your economist worries. That is the issue, but they don't really understand what is the underlying problem, why the car sales went down. You all probably heard about quantitative easing. Since 2009, particularly in US and Europe, they continuously printing money. So basically, central banks will print the money, the governments will, then they will buy the bonds of the government, and then the money will be borrowed by the banks. What happens? The banks then invest that money in the stock market. So the result of quantitative easing is the 20% increase in the stock market. When the money goes back, the stock market crash. And remember, 40% of stock market is owned by just 5% of the world population. That means only the richest people owns stock market. So who is actually benefiting? The rich people, the 5%. So the actual quantitative easing wasn't for the common man, it was for those capitalist people. Look at this economic model. For a sustainable economy, we need to embark. When we say we, you and me, everybody need to embark on a circular economy. We can't just simply take the resource, make the product, and then throw away, use it and throw away. Instead, we should be making the product, trying to reuse it, trying to recycle the product, and hence we create circular economy. And that is the comparison between linear and circular economy. We all think Calicut is a place which is actually closer to Bangalore and Cochin and Trivandrum. Why thousands of youngsters need to travel to Bangalore for IT jobs? If we had a policy of distributing jobs, the jobs need to go to where people are, and they should be based on it. Look at this model. About 20 years ago, Europe embarked on a metropolis-linked, urban-linked economic model. So they based their companies in London, Amsterdam, Düsseldorf, Frankfurt, and Dublin. Remember, these are different countries. So a human resource manager having a meeting today in London, having breakfast, he can travel to Amsterdam in 1.5 hours, and he can do the next meeting. And he can then come back to Dublin, and he can possibly have his dinner at Frankfurt. That is the importance of connectivity, distributing jobs, and the companies realizing not bringing people to the metropolis, instead the jobs should go to the urban cities. This is a Millennium Project, a think tank group spinned off from United Nations. I'm not going to go through every aspect of it, but one thing I'm very keen is the global ethics, which is the 15, and the inequalities of poor and rich. Think about artificial intelligence. The biggest issue the human is facing now is artificial intelligence. Almost 1/3 of the jobs you will see will go because the banks will disappear, the supermarkets will have automated tills, and wherever you go, things will be automated. If you want to get an insurance policy, you'll be calling the robot based in the corporate world. The Japanese already implemented it. They have already implemented IBM's Watson as a artificial intelligence platform to assist policy leaders. So the biggest issue is what you see is the ethical dilemma. You can see when an IBM software developer, when he developed the software, his primary category focus will be the accountability, which is accountability to the law, to the people, to the government, value alignment, which is the value to the company, explainability, that means reasoning why he did what, and fairness and user data. But the social psychologists, they say there are more to it. We as human beings, we have loyalty, liberty, hierarchy, fairness, care, and sanctity. Because the human values are much broader, much granular, and it is much explainable. And can you see the problem coming? When the artificial intelligence comes, the developer focuses on certain values, and we as human beings, we as community has a set of different values. And that is going to be the ethical dilemmas coming up in the future. The biggest challenge, part of the Global Millennium Project, which I showed you earlier, is the global ethics, number 7, which is the inequality between the poor and rich. Just 1% of Indian population holds 50% of entire wealth. How can you justify? How can you justify 1% of the population holding almost 50% of the entire nation's wealth? How people are going to survive? People being treated as commodity. You all are consumers, commodity. They are dependent on your consumption. So you can see the global challenge. And these sort of global challenges are transnational, transinstitutional, hence we need global institutions to address it. Don't be confused. I'm not going to talk about the future of capitalism in the hemisphere or the sphere of socialism. I'm not, because I may sound a bit socialist in my wording, but actually I'm talking about the capitalism. Because the problem here is the moral deficit facing modern capitalism, the greed and selfishness. And when society thinks it can sustain without moral base and social obligations, and just note the word social obligations, because you will all hear liberty, human right, equality, but you will hear less about obligation. Why? Nobody is telling you. Because you expect everything from state. State provides you the safety, state provides you the infrastructure, state provides you the education. But what is your obligation? So the modern capitalism is about your obligation to your family, your obligation to your people, your obligation to your community, where you belong to, and to your nation and the global. And the modern capitalism is not about companies just making profit and increasing shareholder value. It is more about a cohesion of shareholder value, corporate sustainability, and social impact. And the core principle is bringing that social impact into the corporate culture and building company together with the community. Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist. He's a social psychologist, he's not a businessman. But he actually teaches business in many business schools. And one of the things he brings into his concept of capitalism is bringing back that human emotions, human values, or human belonging, the fundamentals of human belongings to a particular place, which consists, again, loyalty, fairness, liberty, hierarchy, and sanctity. And these are the fundamental values. Whether you live in the family, whether you work as an educator, whether you are a banker, whether you are a corporate CEO, if you have these values, if you can connect with these values, then you will be able to connect with your obligations, you will be able to connect with your society, you will be able to know that if you do X and what would be the implications. Those bankers, If the Citibank CEO had any of these values, he wouldn't be telling that, let us continue dancing. All of you will have to interact with people. And there are 5 things we will interact. You will be part of a state, so state or country. So you'll be interacting with the country. You'll be part of a firm. You'll be doing some jobs. You'll be part of a community, family, and you yourself as an individual. And in all those interactions, those values which I mentioned, care, sanctity, liberty, hierarchy, fairness, when you bring those ideas into your life, something comes up, pragmatism. As a community, you're more pragmatic. Are you pragmatic in these days? Because we have a community which is divisive on the margins of religion, caste, and social status. Remember, many rich people, many highly educated people, when they go out to another country, often they won't say, I'm an Indian. They will say, I'm a professor. I'm a CEO. Because they don't connect with the nationalism. But they will teach you, be nationalist. They will tell you to be nationalist because they need you. You are the nationalist. They got the money and they will identify themselves as related to their religion, related to their money, their position, and their social status. So don't be fooled, because you should be believing in human belongings, probably not human values, because my value may not be your value. If I say I believe in a certain things, that may not be your value. But there is a place you belong to. There's a community you're part of. So please, trust in human belongings. You all know this man, the Wipro CEO. Probably you don't see his face as frequent as Reliance CEO or some of these flashy CEOs. Almost 50% of his charity, his money earned from Wipro business is going to education. Invest in education. He keep investing. And this is the way the good corporate will function. Look at Wellcome Trust. For years, they earn money from pharmaceutical industry. The entire money goes into the research. And those money will inventing molecules, inventing new drugs. And be mindful, not even a single molecule being invented by an Indian company till this date. Till this day, there's not even a single drug being invented by an Indian company which is registered in FDA. What if the government had a policy of at least 1% tax being diverted into the research for 50 years? We will have, or we should have, the same success as we are making as ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. So there's no money because there's no policy. Tata Steel, I live near Tata Steel in England. They're one of the corporate company, a good example as an industrialist, but not a business people. Please don't be blinded. This is the biggest thing you should remember. Because the mass things, local things like Sabarimala, Shantivanam, Madhav Gadkil, in global scale, these are little things. Think about the hydrocarbon footprint it's going to leave because of the Saudi Arabian, the oil is going to be dumped for next 30 years in Cumberland. That is the bigger picture. So look at this man, Desmond Tutu, once he said, when the British went to Zimbabwe, it's a joke. They said, here is the Bible, all close the eyes. When they opened the eyes, the entire land went to British. What I'm trying to say is the future of capitalism is in you. You can build ethical communities. You can build ethical firms with obligations. If you're not an entrepreneur, you can be part of an ethical firm. You can help politicians build ethical state that produces visionary legislators. You can interact with, or you can support, or you can be yourself as ethical executives concerned about common man. And be prepared to have that shared belonging. You belong to a community. You belong to a family. You belong to the state. You belong to the country. And that brings obligation. What is your contribution to the society? It's not just about your rights and liberty. The government needs to bring targeted monetary policies that allows investment in education. The biggest difference in the world is the highly educated and less educated, because education brings prosperity. And it is about those educated people looking down or looking across the line to the other side and seeing the less educated and bringing them to the community and supporting within their periphery of capabilities. And preparing and adapting to the onslaught of AI. Please remember, if you're planning for your children certain jobs, that won't be there in next 20 years, because it is going to be taken over by artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. മോൻസി മാത്യുവിന് മെമ്മൻ്റോ കൊടുക്കുന്നതിനായി കോഴിക്കോട് എസൻസിൻ്റെ വിനോദ് മങ്കട, പ്ലീസ്.